Every story leaves something behind, a whisper, a shadow, a question that was never answered. Here, we dig through the forgotten files, the unsolved mysteries, the chilling true crimes, and the horrors people wish had stayed buried. From haunted legends to real-life nightmares, every tale is pulled straight from the horror archives. So turn down the lights, put on your headphones, and step carefully, because once a story enters the horror archives, it never truly leaves. Tonight, 3 true stories, all set during blizzards. There's something about heavy snow that changes the rules. It buries sound, it erases evidence, and it traps you in place with whatever's out there. Our first story comes from a man who borrowed a friend's cabin in northern Minnesota. What he found in the snow the next morning made him leave. What his friend found months later made him wish he'd never gone at all. The footprints went in a circle around my cabin. Not once, not twice. I counted the overlapping impressions in the snow the next morning and stopped at 11. This was February of 2021. I was staying at a friend's hunting cabin about 40 minutes north of Duluth, Minnesota. It sits on a ridge above a frozen creek, surrounded by birch and pine so thick you can't see the nearest neighbor, which is about 1.5 miles east. I'd come up alone to finish a riding project. The forecast called for 6 to 10 inches overnight, but by the time I went to bed around 11, the wind was screaming and the snow was falling sideways. The cabin has no cell service, no landline. There's a weather radio on the kitchen counter and a wood stove that takes about an hour to really heat the place. That first night, I barely slept because the wind kept slamming something against the north wall. I assumed it was a loose shutter. In the morning, the snow was up past my knees when I stepped off the porch. That's when I saw the tracks. Boot prints, adult-sized. They came out of the tree line to the west, approached the cabin, and then circled it. Not in a wandering, confused way. The stride was even, deliberate, like someone pacing. They circled the cabin over and over again, and then the trail led back to the trees in the exact same direction it came from. I told myself it was a neighbor checking on the property during the storm, but no one knew I was there except my friend, and he was in Phoenix. I followed the tracks to the tree line. They continued into the woods for maybe 30 yards and then just stopped. Not faded, not buried. They stopped in the middle of a gap between 2 birch trees, as if the person had been lifted straight up. I went back inside and locked the door. That night, the storm picked up again. Around 2 in the morning, I heard something that wasn't the wind. It was a slow, rhythmic crunching. Footsteps in snow, moving around the cabin. I sat in the dark next to the wood stove and listened. The steps circled once, twice, 3 times. Then they stopped right outside the bedroom window. I didn't have curtains on that window. I hadn't needed them. No one was supposed to be out there. I didn't look. I sat there for maybe 2 hours until the sound moved away. In the morning, the tracks were back. Same pattern, same entry point from the trees, same exit, same dead stop 30 yards into the woods. I packed my truck and left that afternoon. The roads were barely plowed, and it took me almost 3 hours to get back to the highway. I called my friend that night and asked if anyone else had a key to the cabin. He said no. I asked if anyone in the area would check on it during storms. He said the cabin had been broken into once, 3 winters ago. Someone had gotten inside and stayed for what looked like several days. They never figured out who. The only thing left behind was a small pile of birch bark shavings on the floor next to the bed, like someone had been sitting there, whittling in the dark. I never went back, but my friend told me something a few months later that I still think about. He went up in April after the thaw and found a spot in the crawl space under the cabin where the insulation had been pulled down and flattened, like someone had been lying there, underneath the cabin, right below where I slept. That detail at the end, the crawl space, that changes the whole story, and not for the better. The next one takes place on a lonely road in Vermont, and it might be connected to something worse. This story was submitted by a woman who was driving home through a blizzard when she realized the car behind her wasn't just following. It was hunting. The car behind me had been matching my speed for 22 miles. Every time I slowed down, it slowed down. Every time I sped up, it sped up. And it never turned on its headlights. This was January 2019, and I was driving home from my sister's house in Bradford, Vermont. Route 6 is a two-lane road that cuts through nothing for long stretches. Woods on both sides, no streetlights. The blizzard had started around 4 in the afternoon, and by 7, when I left, visibility was maybe 2 car lengths. My sister begged me to stay, but I had work in the morning, and I'm stubborn. That's the only reason I was on that road. I first noticed the car about 10 minutes after I turned onto Route 6. I checked my mirror and saw a dark shape behind me. No headlights, but I could see it because my taillights reflected off its front end. It was a sedan, dark-colored, and it was close, maybe 3 car lengths back. I assumed they'd forgotten to turn their lights on. I tapped my brakes a few times, hoping they'd get the hint. Nothing. I slowed to about 25. They slowed to 25. I sped up to 40, which was dangerous in that snow. They matched it instantly. There were no turnoffs for the next several miles. I kept driving. The snow was so heavy that my wipers could barely keep up. I turned the radio off because I wanted to focus. In the silence, I started to feel a specific kind of fear. The kind where your hands get cold even though the heat is blasting. After about 15 minutes, I came to a small pull-off, a scenic overlook that's just a gravel patch in winter. I signaled and pulled in, expecting the car to pass me. It didn't. It pulled in right behind me. Same distance, 3 car lengths, no headlights, engine running. I sat there for maybe a full minute. Nobody got out. I couldn't see the driver because of the snow on their windshield. I pulled back onto the road. They followed. I called 911. The dispatcher asked for my location, and I told her I was on Route 6, heading south toward Wells River. She said she'd send a trooper, but the roads were bad, and it might take a while. She told me not to stop. I told her I wouldn't. Then the car started getting closer. Not fast, just gradually. The gap went from 3 car lengths to 2, then 1. I could see the outline of the car clearly now in my mirror. No front plate, snow covering the windshield, except for a small arc on the driver's side, just barely cleared. I still couldn't see a face. I came up on the intersection with Route 302 and took the turn fast. Too fast. My back end slid, and I nearly went into a ditch. I corrected and kept going. I checked my mirror. The car had stopped at the intersection. It just sat there in the middle of the road, dark, no lights, not moving. Then it turned, not onto 302. It turned around, back the way we'd come. The trooper found me pulled over about 4 miles down 302, shaking. He followed me the rest of the way home. He told me they'd had 2 other calls that winter about a dark sedan following people on Route 6 during storms. No plates, no headlights. They never found the car. 3 weeks later, a woman went missing on Route 6 during another snowstorm. Her car was found on the shoulder with the driver's door open and the engine still running. No footprints leading away from it, just tire marks from another vehicle parked directly behind hers. She was never found. That last detail, the open door, the engine still running. Someone stopped, and someone didn't get to leave. This last story is the one that's going to stay with you. I'll say that up front. It was sent in by a mother in Pennsylvania, and it involves her 6-year-old daughter. And a voice that came from the snow. Someone was calling my daughter's name from outside the house. It was 3 in the morning, and the snow was 4 feet deep. This happened in February 2020 in a small town outside of Erie, Pennsylvania. Lake effect blizzards, there are a different animal. The snow doesn't just fall, it buries. We'd gotten nearly 5 feet in 2 days, and the plows hadn't reached our street yet. My husband was stuck in Pittsburgh for work. It was just me and my 6-year-old daughter, Lily. The power had gone out around midnight. I'd moved Lily into my bed and we were under every blanket we owned. The house was getting cold fast. I was drifting in and out of sleep when I heard it. A voice outside, muffled by the snow and wind, but clear enough to make out the word. Lily. I sat up. The voice came again. Lily. It was coming from the backyard. It sounded like a woman, not shouting, not whispering, just speaking the name at a normal volume, like someone standing in a room calling a child to dinner. I went to the back window. I couldn't see anything. The snow was so high, it reached the bottom of the window frame. The backyard was just a white void in the dark. But the voice came again. Lily. Same tone, same cadence, like a recording on repeat. I checked on Lily. She was asleep. I locked the bedroom door, which I'd never done before. I stood at the window and listened. The voice stopped for about 10 minutes. Then it started again, but from the side of the house. Closer. Lily. Lily. Same woman's voice, same flat, calm delivery. I called 911 from my cell. I told the dispatcher someone was outside my house, calling my daughter's name. She asked if I could see anyone. I said no. She said she'd try to get someone out, but the roads were impassable on our end of town. She told me to stay inside and stay on the line. Then Lily woke up. She sat up in bed and looked at me and said, "Mommy, she's been coming every night." My stomach dropped. I asked her what she meant. She said that for the past 3 nights, a woman had been calling her name from outside her bedroom window. Lily's bedroom is on the first floor. She said the first night it scared her, but the woman told her not to be scared. I asked how the woman told her that. Lily said the woman talked to her through the window. Lily's bedroom window was frozen shut. I'd checked it myself earlier that week, but when I went to her room, the lock was turned to the open position. There were streaks on the inside of the glass, like someone had pressed their fingers against it. On the outside of the window, where the snow was piled up to the sill, there was a depression. A hollow space melted into the snowbank, just large enough for a person to crouch in right against the glass. The voice started again, this time from the front of the house. Lily. I grabbed my daughter and went to the bathroom, the only interior room with a lock. We stayed there until sunrise. In the morning, I looked outside. The snow was undisturbed. No footprints anywhere, no tracks, but the depression outside Lily's window was still there. And inside it, pressed into the snow at the bottom, was a handprint. It was too long. The fingers were wrong. They were too thin, and there were marks in the snow at the tips, like nails or something longer than nails, had been dragged downward. We moved in with my mother that same day. My husband drove home from Pittsburgh the next morning and went to the house to get our things. He called me while he was there and said something that made me feel like the floor was falling out from under me. He said Lily's bedroom window was open, wide open, and on the windowsill, on the inside, there were wet streaks, like something had climbed in and then climbed back out. We sold that house 4 months later. The new owners have a daughter. She's 5. I think about that more than I should. And that's where tonight's file closes, but the archives are far from empty. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe and join us as we uncover more horrors, mysteries, and true crimes hidden in the horror archives. Until next time, keep the lights low, keep listening, because you never know what story we'll uncover next.